So welcome back. So 5 important tips for cycling the North Coast 500, and tip 1 is the time of year. So what time of year are you going to go? It depends, I guess, on what leave or holiday that you have available. However, if you can choose a time, then I would suggest May, early June or September. The reason I would choose these particular months, I cycled on myself in September, is that they tend to be quieter, the roads are less busy, less coaches, less traffic, and of course less people, and the schools are still in. So that would be my tip. Outside of that, obviously you've got the winter months when it will be a little bit harsher, but in the real summer months it gets so busy. And remember that it is on the west coast in particular, single track roads, and gets incredibly busy. So that's my first tip. Think about what time of the year that you're going, and I would suggest May, June or September. That's tip 1 of cycling the North Coast 500. So tip 2 on cycling the North Coast 500 is to book your accommodation in advance. I'm sure most of you do this, but if you don't and you try to wing it, you have to remember that a lot of the places that you will go to will be quite remote. There are hostels and there are B&Bs and the odd hotel, but they get booked up in advance, and quite often you will find that there would be no room at the inn if you tried to wing it. You have to remember this is a very busy route, and become more so since they rebranded it and called it the NC 500. The road has always been there, however since the rebranding and the website, it's a very popular route to now do all year round. So make sure, tip 2, that you book your accommodation in advance and you know exactly where it is that you're going. Obviously if you're carrying tents and pots and pans, then you're going along a different route, but if you're like me and cycling solo, then you want to know where you're going to and that you have a bed at the end of your ride. Okay, that's tip 2 on cycling the North Coast 500. So tip number 3 on cycling the North Coast 500 is to remember that it's not all about Bilac na Bar. So there are many climbs along this route, along this circuit, Bilac na Bar being one of them. I'm sure if you've researched it, you'll know all about Bilac na Bar. You may well have been up it, but if you haven't, it's a 9k climb, goes to Salvaquest, and it's quite tough in places for sure, up to 20%, rising from sea level to over 2,000 feet. But there are other climbs all around the route, majority of them up the west coast, but there are other climbs. The Asynth Peninsula has a multi section of climbs, albeit not as long as Bilac na Bar, but they are short and sharp, and they will also test your resolve and the gears that you have available. So make sure that you have a selection of gears available in your setup that you can go to, and you don't want to run out of gears too early. I've heard of people, you know, taking in excess of 2 hours to climb Bilac na Bar because A, the bikes were too heavy with all the kit that was loaded onto them, and B, they didn't have a good enough selection of gears available to go to. Always keep a bailout gear. If you currently cycle in an area that isn't particularly undulating and you use all of the available gears that you have, then I would suggest that you look to change your cassette to give you a greater degree of options. I cycle with a 1229 on my particular bike that I do my adventure rides on, and the chain set is a compact chain set, it's a 5034. So that's my third tip, is don't underestimate the rest of the hills that you will find around this route. On cycling the North Coast 500, be realistic on the mileage that you can expect to do during your daily ride. So this would determine the amount of kit obviously that you're carrying, and also I guess the time of year that you're choosing to go. However, you have to remember the terrain, weather conditions will all play a part in that, and the last thing you want is to find that you're really starting to flag and you still have maybe a 15 or 20 mile trip, because that 20 miles will seem like an eternity. And if you're cycling solo, or certainly unsupported and solo like I do, then there's no van, there's no backup. The only way you're going to get there is to pedal. So think on that, and that is tip number 4. Okay, so tip number 5 for cycling the North Coast 500 is quite a generic tip really for any adventure cycling. However, I think it's important to mention it on this, and that is make sure that you carry a quality waterproof jacket, because you will need it at some stage. I carry with me a Berghaus Active Gore-Tex jacket, which is lightweight enough to cycle in, not too bulky, and packs down very small to be able to put into my rucksack. So when the weather gets bad, then obviously this is what I can put on. It will rain at some stage, you can expect that whatever time of year you go, but obviously the more extreme months, then the more rain or alternate weather you're likely to get. So that is tip number 5. Another thing that I would add to that is that if you are someone that likes to wear a fluorescent jacket, then choose silver, pink, blue, white, anything really over yellow. If you choose to go in the slightly warmer months, then yellow will attract just about every bug you can imagine, and certainly in Scotland it will attract the midges like you will not believe. So choose any colour other than yellow if you like to use a fluorescent waterproof jacket. Okay, and that's tip number 5 of cycling the North Coast 500. So be safe out there, keep your riding, keep your thoughts on, and catch you next time.